Alright, welcome back everyone to yet another video, and today we'll be covering Citron's short report on Palantir, or more importantly everything that is wrong with it, and that is basically the whole report. And there's a very good reason why the whole report is, misinformed, hallucinated, and that is because it appears to be largely generated by ChatGPT. In fact, it features screenshots directly from ChatGPT, like this price to revenue calculation. This chart could be because these growth percentages are off. This table is definitely copy-pasted from ChatGPT, as it is, by appearance and also by the external links to the sources. And even this table here, if I zoom in a bit, you can see this little down arrow, when ChatGPT generates a lot more content and you scroll up, then you have the option, to scroll down. So, I'm not really sure what they were going for, but in this short report, they claim that Palantir should be trading at $40 per share if they're being generous, and that is because OpenAI just held a funding round, which implies a $500 billion market cap on the company. So that's really what they're going with. I don't know if they purposefully try to use ChatGPT to create a short report to make a point or something, but in any case, every bear argument is misinformed or even sometimes straight up false, like completely wrong. So I think in general, the short report is very lazy. And to me, Citron has been around for more than a decade. And they really lost a lot of credibility with this short report. It is very poor quality. And what I've done over on my Substack, I published an equity research piece that is completely free. In general, all these equity research pieces are completely free. The company coverage ones are partially free. But if you scroll down here, I have this article recently published, 6 hours ago, called Citron's short report is a ChatGPT copy-paste. So in this article, I break down, every bear argument and, dismantle it more or less. So this came out on Monday, August 18th, and Palantir traded down, since, more than 10%, 10% and more. And that could be largely due to, macro events or the S&P 500 index trading down as well. Like it probably isn't completely due to the short report, but if there is anyone shorting Palantir stock just based on this report, you probably should think twice after you watch this. But excuse me. It is available on research.typefcapital.com completely for free for you to read. So if you don't want to listen to me go through it, you can go and read it on your own, or do both. Listen to me and then go read it yourself. So as this beginning piece just explains what I just told you, so we can skip that. And the very first bear argument here is that it trades expensive compared to OpenAI. So as I mentioned, they held a funding round, which implies a $500 billion market cap and then by looking at forward revenue estimates, they get a forward price to sales ratio. And if you apply that same ratio, you get, according to them, you get a $40 per share, but in fact it is $36.9 per share, so a bit worse than they said. And quoted from the article, I'm guessing it's going to be annoying if I jump back and forward, but as you can see, there are these headlines where they bring forward different, bear arguments, but I've cut and pasted the relevant quote, so maybe we can just stay in my article here. So OpenAI, the undisputed leader in AI, I don't know if they are undisputed, they have a lot of competition, is achieving revenue and user growth at an unprecedented pace in technology history. I have not fact-checked that, but they are growing impressively, expected to grow 100% next year. Its new $500 billion valuation provides a true benchmark for evaluating Wall Street's favorite trading stock, Palantir, a company now detached from fundamentals and analysis, ironically, the very services it claims to offer. Okay, so they do this example where they look at revenue estimates for next year, and on a forward price to sales basis, you get a 16.9 multiple by dividing the $500 billion of market cap with 29.6 billion expected revenue. And then if you do the same for Palantir, with Wall Street's consensus estimates, according to Citron Research, is 5.6 billion. If you use the same multiple, you get an implied price per share of 36.9. So not quite 40, a bit below that. And Citron Research argues that Palantir does not deserve the same multiple as OpenAI, as OpenAI is the superior AI company. And then, of course, the rest of the report argues which company truly leads the pack, which is a quote from the article. And so straight away, I don't like pricing metrics on this channel. You guys that have been watching me, you know that pricing is not valuation. Pricing, PE ratios or price to sales, it is a reference to price, not a reference to value. Essentially, it is a snapshot of current or near-term financial results compared to where the stock is trading. And then you use the resulting multiple to compare it, to its industry peers. For Palantir, could be other SaaS companies, with an AI theme. And then you can see, okay, is Palantir expensive or cheap? But it doesn't really tell you anything about the value of the business, because intrinsic valuation centers around growth, cash flows, and risk into the future brought back to present value. And that's how you typically value businesses and have been doing for, centuries. This is not something new that came out of, Wall Street or something. People on Earth have bought and sold businesses based on cash flows for, centuries. So there's nothing new about it. So, of course, on a pricing basis, what did we say here? A price to sales of 118 and a PE ratio of 523. No one can argue that this is cheap by any means. And that is the keyword, cheap, not undervalued. Those are different. Cheap, expensive, they are in relation to pricing. Overvalued or undervalued is in relation to valuation. So on a pricing basis, extremely expensive, probably the most expensive SaaS company in the S&P 500, most likely. I haven't checked that, but it makes sense that it would be. That is the common headline. And what you need to keep in mind is that Palantir is very early in its narrative. I mean, the company is just getting started. They just got a go-to-market strategy. They're just starting to scale. I mean, the company is very young, despite being around for, over 20 years now. Most of Palantir's growth engines are just now getting started. And when you try to price a company like that has, exploding margins, exploding revenue growth, they will almost never appear, attractive on a pricing basis. That's why people always say that, if you only focus on price sales, you would have missed Amazon, you would have missed Tesla, you would have missed, and that is, a very sane argument, because rarely does a company that is growing so incredibly fast and also expanding margins on top of that incredibly fast, rarely is that kind of company, not given a premium by the markets. The markets are forward looking and they really like that. So when you are comparing, current financials in that type of business, the PE ratio and the price sales ratio will almost never make sense. However, I did a little exercise to see, okay, let's assume that Palantir should trade at $37. What does that imply in the stock quote? And that would mean that Palantir is expected to grow at 23.5% over a 10-year period. Keep in mind that next quarter they are guided to grow at 50%, and most of that is from current customers, not existing customers. So the scalability is there, and scalability means sustainability in this case. And as I mentioned, they are just getting started. And also, it implies 30% free cash flow to the firm margins. And they are already above that. So in aggregate, these estimates, 23.5% revenue CAGR over a 10-year period and 30% free cash flow to the firm margins, extremely pessimistic. extremely. You can even see like my actual valuation puts Palantir, a fair intrinsic value of 128. And keep in mind here also that Karp just said that the US revenue will 10x in 5 years. So how do you make sense of a 23.5% CAGR over a 10-year period when the next 5 will have, 10x revenues within, US only? So in that regard, sure, you can make your own opinion about price to sales or price to earnings, or even about intrinsic valuation. It is personal. So I can't really fault it more than that their math is off for Palantir or whatever. However, where they are wrong is in the next segment here. Revenue growth falls short of OpenAI's transformative pace. So Citron's report, it features a chart, as I mentioned, where it maps out Palantir's and OpenAI's revenue growth in 2026. So OpenAI reaches 29.4 billion in the example here, and Palantir only reaches 5 billion for some reason, which is, a 4% increase from the, it appears to be around 4.8 billion in 2025, and then it just increases 4%. So that's what makes me believe that this is AI generated as well. It makes no sense. So the two businesses, they have completely different go-to-market strategies. And that's why it doesn't really make sense to compare their growth profiles. And defining a leader in AI on a projected year-over-year growth basis, and also keep in mind that Wall Street estimates for Palantir have always been off, always too pessimistic. But still, comparing a single period to, define the leader in AI doesn't tell you anything about the quality of growth or the sustainability of the growth. So OpenAI is in a stage where they are, burning up large amounts of capital in reinvestment to fuel the growth that they are having because, they're under fierce competition. There are a lot of competing LLM models. You got Gemini, you got, I don't need to go through the list. There are a lot of LLM models, both from hyperscalers, very well capitalized businesses, and also, open source alternatives. There's a lot of players in this field from China, from the US, globally. So they have to really burn a lot of cash just to keep up. On the other hand, Palantir has a very, very capital light model, and more importantly, a scaling model where, they're able to expand margins while accelerating. And that comes from Palantir's growth model, and that is land and expand. And what I mean by that is that Palantir, gets their foot through the door at a client, and over time, that client, since AIP is priced on a usage basis, they will use Palantir products for more and more use cases within their business. In some cases, companies run their whole business on Palantir's platforms. And that results in this, where you see that Palantir grew 48% in Q2, 28% of that, which means, a majority of the revenue growth came from existing clients that have been with Palantir for 12 months or longer. Same case last quarter, Q1 of 2025, 24% from existing customers, 15% of growth from new customers. So if you look at this trend here, as AIP launched and they introduced this, usage-based pricing model, you can really see how sustainable growth will become, because more or less Palantir is guaranteed, 30% just from existing clients, and the rest comes from whatever they manage to do during the quarter to acquire new customers. So in essence, that kind of model is just very, very robust over time. And it not only because they are scaling, but what's, when customers increase their spending, it means that they are really happy with your product. It means that it is providing them value. It means that they want to stay with you. It means that it's very sticky. So two completely different models under completely different circumstances, two completely different businesses that, to me, it doesn't really make sense to compare them. So here, OpenAI primarily grows through subscriptions to its ChatGPT product, a product that is under immense pressure. Yeah, we mentioned that. And I also mentioned that their competitors are better capitalized. And everyone that is competing here, building out LLMs, there's a really unpredictable factor in terms of, rates of improvement of these LLMs. At some points in time, it seems that they're all equivalent. So why should you use OpenAI if there's a cheaper alternative or even free alternative at some times that is comparable or even, equally matched? And so no, we don't really know, what the rate of improvement will be. And it is a natural race to the bottom for all parties involved. And that is because LLMs will be commoditized, and each service, as a result, will try to undercut each other in order to gain market share. As I mentioned, if you have 10 models that are, mainstream and large, and a few of them are free, why would you be paying OpenAI money when there's a free alternative that is just as good? So they will be under a lot of pressure, when they try to grow out their subscriber base. We're still very early in the LLM saga, but as Alex Karp has been saying, as many different AI experts have been saying, LLMs are the commodity here. Palantir is the platform, and on Palantir, you can use any model you want to. Basically, they have open source models. You can use Grok, you can use ChatGPT, you can use Gemini, whatever you want. Basically, they're model agnostic in that sense. And because OpenAI is not public, we do not have audited financial records for the business. However, it is assumed that company is incurring, massive losses in order to compete in the LLM space. So, quality of growth to me, and sustainability seems to be on Palantir's side here. So, okay, that is that part. So next, business models. Citron claims that OpenAI operates a SaaS-like subscription model spanning massive global segments. And then they also say basically that Palantir primarily is relying on large contracts in its government segment, and that is lumpy, less scalable. So large contracts in its government segment, and in addition to that, on the commercial side, it is lumpy and less scalable. And I just showed you that it is in fact very, very scalable. And also this lumpiness, there's no evidence of that at all. So as I write here, this is plain and simply wrong. And it appears that Citron let a hallucinated response from the ChatGPT session make its way to their report. While it is true that Palantir does get large government contracts from time to time, it's not true that they're all structured that way, because Palantir is active across more than 15 different agencies, and they get contracts of all different sizes. So I made this example here. In Q1 of 2025, they signed a mere $50,000 contract from the Department of Justice. Is that large and lumpy? In fact, I would say that having the ability to compete for massively large contracts is very bullish for Palantir. That's not a weakness, but they're not merely tied to that. So I pulled all the type A, B, C, and D contracts on a cumulative basis from 2009 to present day. And there's only one agency that has awarded more than 1 billion, cumulatively over this period. And the average actually across the different agencies is $177 million over a 16-year span. So keep in mind that Palantir gets a lot of government contracts that are very large. They don't fall under the A, B, and C, D categories here. So these are, typically a lot smaller and fixed in size and timing. While, the massive ones are typically not fixed in the same way. They probably have a lot of options in the contracts and stuff like that. They're a lot more complex. So merely A, B, C, and D contracts, see the distribution here, it is not overly reliant on just, only large contracts. They're serving, these different agencies in all capacities, large and small and medium sized. So completely false. And as I mentioned, on the commercial side, there's no evidence of the revenues being lumpy either. And as I mentioned, we just looked at the scalability, where the current customers are, accounting for a majority of revenue growth. But also, there's no lumpiness, because if we look at the closed deals of at least 1 million and above, you see a clear trend across all different segments. So net new deals is the bars here. You can see a clear trend that is increasing. This blue line here, this blue dashed line, is deals of 1 to 5 million. Similarly, clear trend upwards. This yellow line is deals of 5 to 10 million. Also, moving its way upwards over time. It is a bit cyclical on a quarterly basis. Some quarters will feature more and some will feature less. So typically the second half of the year will have more of, these large kind of contracts. But the overall trend is, it is increasing. And the same can be said of deals of at least 10 million or more. So that could be 11 million or 200 million. Those are also, trending upwards. So where is the lumpiness here? I'm not seeing it. And that is, of deals closed of at least 1 million and above. And throughout 2023 and 2024, Palantir also reported US commercial deals closed. They don't report it anymore, unfortunately. But where's the lumpiness here? The trend line is clearly going upwards here. So, the last quarter we got was Q4 2024, 188 US commercial deals closed. I mean, do you see the lumpiness here? I don't. We don't see it in, the revenue growth. We don't see it in scalability. So completely made up the way I see it. And the next one is also funny. In the same segment, Citron claims that OpenAI's total addressable market is measured in trillions, spanning every consumer, enterprise, and developer use case. Palantir's TAM, on the other hand, is portrayed to be defense and enterprise contracts that scale slowly and compete head-on with giants like Microsoft and Databricks. So on the government side, they are serving more than 15 different agencies. Not only, defense budget that they're competing for. They are, across 15 different agencies. So that they are overly reliant on just defense contracts on the government side is also wrong. Scalability we have discussed, but they mentioned two competitors, and neither of these are competing with Palantir, trying to be the modern operating system for businesses at all. In fact, both are partners with Palantir and both can be leveraged inside Palantir's products. They're not offering the same kind of platform capabilities that Palantir is. Instead, you can just utilize those products inside of Palantir and leverage them. So they are partners, not competitors. In fact, that could be turned around and said that those two are directly competing with OpenAI. Microsoft holds a stake in OpenAI, but on the side, they're also developing their own AI capabilities. And Databricks has acquired, an LLM business. So they are more competitors to OpenAI than they are to Palantir. And as for the total addressable market, Palantir is operational across virtually every industry and sector that exists. I mean, there's no use case that you can think of that Palantir can't be deployed to resolve. The use cases that we are being presented with, on AIP cons, that we hear on, during recent earnings calls. I mean, we just know that Palantir is operational across virtually every sector imaginable. So Palantir's TAM being limited, closer to the truth would be that Palantir's total addressable market is, limitless, not limited. So I have no idea why, ChatGPT felt that Palantir's TAM is limited. I mean, it is not limited at all. In addition, I didn't write it here, but when you're talking about, addressable market, you don't only talk about, okay, how many different use cases can you solve, but also, how many customers can you address? So As a reference, Palantir has 850 total customers. Salesforce has close to 200,000 enterprise customers. So that puts it into perspective where how early Palantir is in their story and how much addressable market there is today, let alone, in 10, 15, 20 years. So no, I don't believe that the statement is true at all. While I do agree that OpenAI has a large addressable market for their product as well. I'm not disputing that. I'm just disputing that the Palantir piece is completely wrong. The next segment here is on competitive threats. So again, they have a screenshot here. I think I showed it. Yeah, here with the different competitors. So this is, copy pasted from ChatGPT. And they list Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Databricks, and Snowflake as competitors to Palantir. But yet again, none of them are directly competing with Palantir at all. There might be some overlap in capabilities, but in general, all of these are more or less, Palantir partners. All of these can be used inside Palantir's, own platforms and can be leveraged. On the other hand, all of these are competitors to OpenAI. Microsoft is developing LLMs, Amazon develops LLMs, Google develops LLMs, Databricks develops LLMs, even Snowflake is developing LLMs. So when you're talking about, competitive threats, OpenAI is in a much, much worse position. I mean, to my understanding, Palantir has no comparable competitor at all. There is no platform that is achieving what Palantir is achieving and addressing, what Palantir is addressing as of right now on the market, privately or publicly. However, as I mentioned, LLMs are quickly becoming commoditized, and that is a very, very unprofitable race to the bottom for everyone involved. So best of luck to everyone building out massive training centers, data centers in order to compete for something that will inevitably become commoditized completely. So I don't agree with that one either. It seems completely false. So the next one is they mentioned that Palantir lacks a flywheel. So one customer doesn't improve the platform for the next. That's the key difference. OpenAI is a self-reinforcing growth engine, while Palantir is essentially locked in consulting wrapped in software. That is also just so completely wrong that I don't even know where to begin with, because I believe that Palantir is one of the stronger flywheel effects on the market, or in the world as a whole. They have a whole ecosystem built out for powering enterprises from the ground up. When a customer uses Palantir products and, they extract value, improved KPIs, improved growth, cost savings, efficiencies, it puts pressure on every industry peer that customer has. So they either have to adopt or be left behind. And that's what we have been seeing historically, That's why Palantir can so quickly take over a whole, in industries, because one of them adopts it, for example, in healthcare, and then everyone else within the healthcare industry is like, oh, look at them and their results from using Palantir. So everyone gets onto the train. And also about, not having a self-reinforcing engine, it is not, like training an LLM, but Palantir used to send out forward deployed engineers to solve use cases within, specific companies. So let's say, as an example, I don't know if this is, what actually happened at the customer, but we know that there are examples like this. So let's take oil and gas, for example. If Palantir deploys engineers to BP, which we know is a Palantir customer, so oil and gas business, BP, they have forward deployed engineers there. They build out, they solve some pain point for BP, or they have, some challenges that they are able to resolve using Palantir. It is very likely that other oil and gas businesses are facing the same problems, the same challenges that BP is. So all of those solutions can be redeployed. Now for BP, if I recall correctly, they had an agreement with Palantir that Palantir would not sell to competitors for X amount of years. But I'm sure that not every company has that. And Palantir, solutions that are developed for one company within an industry can easily be leveraged across, other businesses as well within the same industry. And that is, I think, the key to why they are operational in so many different industries, because that is also, a compounding effect of, time to value, essentially. So you have that effect where, customers adopt Palantir, they get value that all drives adoption of industry peers. And another thing that I mentioned, time to value. So not every potential customer can relate to every other industry or use case. For example, we have these AIP cons where companies go up on stage and explain, okay, this is how we use Palantir. Or we have earnings calls where like maybe a logistics company or manufacturing company will be like, okay, we're using Palantir for this. It is improving our KPIs. Not everyone will be able to associate with that. However, when they say that something used to take them 12 months and a team of 20 people, and with Palantir's AIP, they can do it in seconds and automated, everyone can relate to that. Everyone can relate to time and, time saved, resources saved. Everyone can relate to that. So this whole, how quickly can we deploy, how quickly can we extract value has been very, very big for Palantir. And that is what I believe has been driving a lot of adoption as of late. That's why you can have a 3-day boot camp with potential customers. And when those potential customers leave, a 1 to 3 day boot camp, they already have built solutions that they can, deploy to production, after those 3 days. So they already have something, they have built something valuable during the boot camp that they can, essentially deploy to their business straight away. So I write here, Palantir does not need to highlight success stories themselves. During recent quarterly earnings calls, customers are out of breath trying to highlight their partnerships with Palantir. We've been seeing that in Q2 earnings. We saw that in Q1 as well, and so forth. So a lot of businesses are very eager to say that they are partnered with Palantir for some reason. I don't know if that makes, analysts think that they have some credibility or so, but, they are crediting Palantir for improving their KPIs. And, there's not, I'm not talking about like 2, 3, 4, 5 companies. It's like, it is a lot of companies are doing that. And also during AIP cons, customers get up on stage, they present like, okay, we use Palantir this way. They're not being paid to do that. They come out on their own accord. So, contrary to what Citron's LLM generated report states, Palantir's platform is self-improving as more and more use cases are deployed. Sold use cases can be redeployed across other customers within the same industry. So I made an oil and gas example. In addition, solutions that are built by customers themselves can be sold on a marketplace. So, this whole dynamic supports an ever-growing developer community that is centered around Palantir products. Palantir is, starting to build out a dev community, foundry for builders. You can sign up for AIP yourself and start building today. So they are really working on that developer community. And over time, we're already starting to see whole businesses being built on Palantir products. So when you have this whole ecosystem that is self-reinforcing, and you have all this dynamic where, adoption drives ecosystem expansion, which in turn drives further adoption, I would say that Palantir is a very, very strong flywheel. And, Arne made a post in regards to the Citron research piece as well. And he mentioned that, okay, if you don't have a flywheel, how do you reach the rule of 40 score that Palantir has been doing? It's not even called the rule of 40 anymore when you're putting up more than double the score. They're like 80s and 90s as of the recent quarters. Like, how do you do that without a flywheel? So completely wrong on this as well. I don't know why they would, hallucinate to this degree. Next up, the Palantir dilemma. So this one is in particularly funny, considering everything we just talked about. They claim that Palantir does not provide any value to its customers. So listen to this direct quote. Palantir faces a familiar squeeze. If it wants to keep growing, it will have to come up with new products that actually solve real business problems, or risk getting sidelined as clients realize that upside isn't what it used to be. The days of selling data fairy dust are fading. It is time for Palantir to prove that it can deliver something new and tangible, not just bigger numbers. Okay. Why would customers be increasingly spending more with Palantir if they're not getting value? Why would they highlight that they are Palantir partners and credit Palantir for improved KPIs if Palantir is not providing value? Why would they, show up on AIP cons and say that, yeah, we saved $200 million by using Palantir in 1 year? I think that's the Tyson Food example, straight quote, like, yeah, we saved $200 million in a year by using Palantir. So this quote is just so ridiculous. In fact, Palantir themselves are quite vocal about other enterprise software solutions being sold over steak dinners or at the golf course without providing any value to customers. Palantir even offered AIP for free in the beginning. They were so confident in the product. They're like, here, take it for free. We're going to take the whole market. And that's exactly what they've been doing. Now, since then, they do have a pricing strategy. But at the beginning, Alex Karp will now say, yeah, I have no pricing strategy at all. In relation to AIP. So Palantir themselves, they pride themselves in delivering outcomes. So I'm not sure why the GPT model was led to believe that Palantir does not provide anything tangible. In fact, as mentioned, in the segments above, customers are widely sharing their success stories from using Palantir. So in conclusion, as I mentioned, Citron writes, leave it to ChatGPT to hand us the answer. And then they have, basically announcing that OpenAI is superior to Palantir. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I don't know if Citron tried to prove a point that OpenAI is superior to Palantir by generating the whole short report using ChatGPT. And if so, it has backfired since the arguments are completely misinformed and inaccurate. The only real argument that a portion of readers and investors might care about is the multiple comparison. But in regards to the actual business analysis, it is just full of hallucinations. So I cheekily write, I would advise Citron's team to start studying Palantir sincerely before putting out such a ridiculous report. Here's a recent coverage I published completely for free prior to Q2 earnings, and that is a good place to start. So I put out this article on my Substack called Positioned for Dominance. You can find it, it is completely free. So if you just go to the Substack, research.typeofcapital.com, if it loads, under company coverage, or here, if you just click view all, it is the first column. You can get all the reports I have out. So the Palantir one is the first one. It is completely free. The others are, partially free. And this covers everything you need to know about Palantir. So if they just read this before writing the report, they would have saved a lot of face. They wouldn't be embarrassing themselves to the degree that they are right now. So it even has my model, pre Q2. The intrinsic value has increased since then by a lot. So everything available for free. If you're interested, I will be publishing an update from Q2. It will not be completely free as this one, but this still describes the business and all the dynamics really, really well. So I recommend reading that. And then, I always say that I'm very open to criticism of Palantir. I'm not a blind, fanboy of the company. I'm genuinely interested in finding, well-grounded bear arguments, because it is very good for the analyst, when you have a very strong opinion about a company and you are proven wrong. It is not only like it is not humbling. It's more like, oh, okay, I overlooked that or I missed that, and it helps you improve. Like, it is a very, very healthy way to go about analyzing companies. Reading contrarian opinions about the company, but they have to be grounded in truth, not just hallucinated by a ChatGPT model. So it served to diminish Citron's credibility in my eyes by using, Chat GPT to generate the report. So very sad, but as I mentioned, on the whole, very, very weak report. Nothing in it, that pertains to the business appears to be true at all. Chat GPT screenshots, all of that. They mentioned some stuff that I didn't comment on, like, insiders selling. Insiders are selling. There's not, what I might say. I don't know why they're doing it, and I can guess, but I mean, it's not, hallucinated in regards to the business itself. But everything that they mentioned about the business, I did comment on. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learn to be skeptical when you read headlines. I hope you guys, double check. And I hope you guys, if you are too lazy to double check it, that you at least read my articles. So plugging the Substack again, Type F Capital Substack is available at research.typeofcapital.com. A lot of stuff there that I put out. So thank you so much for listening, and see you guys in the next one. Bye bye. Citron, make sure to subscribe to my Substack.